Hare Krishna, Namaste, Chapter 18, which is entitled as Sannyasa Yoga. Sloka 49, Part 1. Asakta-buddhiḥ sarvatra, jitātmā vigata-spṛhaḥ, naiṣkarmya-siddhiṁ paramāṁ, sannyāsenādhigacchati. Just a quick note before we get into the sloka. Throughout our Bhagavad Gita sessions, we have been referring to different materials, different commentaries from different acharyas, and extract the essence from various acharyas' commentaries and try to connect them as much as possible. One such example is this sloka that we are going to learn. Here the sannyasa shabda as taken literally as sannyasis, renounced order of life, by some acharyas, namely Baladev Vidyabhushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Shankara, and so forth. Whereas the sannyasa shabda is interpreted not as a renounced order of life, but as trivida tyaga, that is, giving up the mentality of doership, giving up the mentality of ownership, and not being attached to the results of one action, which is also the same principle for who has taken up the renounced order of life. But the fundamental principle is that whatever has been attained by the renounced order of life can be attained by not renouncing the activity but renouncing the three factors. So ultimately, both of them who differs in this are leading towards the same result, which will ultimately give the moksha, the liberation. That is, Dhyana Yoga, which was discussed in chapter 6, gives Dhyana Nishta, meaning being completely fixed in one's Atma. That Dhyana Nishta, which is achieved by performing Jnana Yoga, can be achieved by performing Karma Yoga. That is what explained in the 3rd chapter. So, though the acharyas at times we see vary in their viewpoint, but ultimately the end result they are all trying to get us to is same. Let's keep that in mind and extract the essence from them, but not to get so much caught up with the differences and start getting into debates. The idea is to cultivate knowledge, the knowledge which will help us to develop bhakti, love towards Krishna's lotus feet. And these differences are there to enrich our faith and love towards Krishna. Now let's get started by connecting previous sloka to the current sloka. In the previous sloka, Krishna said that Karma Yoga is natural and easy to be performed. There are no difficulties involved. Therefore, one should not abandon Karma Yoga. Whereas, if you say that there are difficulties in Karma Yoga, there are difficulties in other yogas as well. Like fire is enveloped by smoke. But compared to those difficulties, the difficulties that you think are in Karma Yoga is much better compared to those in the Jnana Yoga. Therefore, you must perform Karma Yoga. When Krishna said this, Arjuna had a doubt. All the activities that is done through Karma Yoga has some reward. When there are rewards, the mind will automatically dwell towards those fruits, towards the result. If the mind gets attached to the result, then one will not be able to attain perfection. Karma Yoga is all about activities. As we do activities, we get some result. When we get the result, the mind get attached to the result. Therefore, how to deal such situation, Krishna? Krishna is responding to that concern in this sloka, that by training the mind gradually, one will not focus on the result. Rather, one will focus on oneself towards the benefit of Atma, not towards the benefit of the body. In other words, one focuses on the spiritual benefits, not on the material benefits. For that, you should know what is the benefit one gets out by performing Karma Yoga and what is the benefit that one gets out of performing Jnana Yoga. In the sloka, Krishna uses the term naiṣkarmya. Naiṣkarmya means Jnana Yoga. Karma means action, activities. Naiṣkarmya means free of activities. In other words, one who has left Karma Yoga is naiṣkarmya. One who has left Karma Yoga are the Karma Yogis. They don't have any obligation to perform any of the dharmas of Karma Yoga. In other words, we already learned that Varnashrama Dharma is an anga for Karma Yoga. Therefore, the Jnana Yogis do not perform the duties of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas or Shudras. Then what do? They simply meditate upon the Atma. Because they have given up the activities, it is naiṣkarmya. And focusing completely and continuously upon the Atma, meditating upon one's Atma. They do this in a gradual basis by increasing the duration of focus upon the Atma. What do they get by performing Jnana Yoga is a siddhi, perfection. That siddhi that they attain by performing Jnana Yoga is called dhyana nishtha. We already know what dhyana nishtha means, where one is able to completely fix their mind and senses upon one's Atma without any distraction for a longer period. And that dhyana nishtha, when engaged continuously, that gets one Atma darshana, a vision of Atma. In other words, well known as self-realization, also known as Atma Sakshatkara. This Atma Sakshatkara leads one next stage, that is Parabhakti, and that Parabhakti leads one to Parajnana, and that Parajnana leads one to Paramabhakti. Now we are way down in this ladder. We need Atma Darshana. For that we need Dhyana Nishtha. Dhyana Nishtha is to bring the mind under complete concentration and focus on one's Atma alone and fix that focus with no other thoughts, with stability. This is said to be Dhyana Nishtha. Lower than the Dhyana Nishtha is Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is where one practices, performs abhyasa, the practice of repeatedly concentrating on one object, on one thing, repeatedly doing the same activities is called abhyasa. By this abhyasa, one will be able to fix oneself on a particular object. In this case, it is the Atma, where the Jnana Yogi try to focus upon. As one continues to perform abhyasa on the Atma, one gets Atma Darshana when one attains Dhyana Nishtha. For one to come to this stage, we have to go to the lower rung in the ladder, that is Karma Yoga. When one follows the Karma Yoga, what happens is the obstacles which are blocking the purification of one's mind gets removed. When the obstacles are removed by following Karma Yoga, one gets Chitta Shuddhi, that is, the consciousness gets purified. when the consciousness get purified, one get into Jnana Yoga. That Jnana Yoga gives us self-realization, the vision of Atma, Atma Sakshatkara. This is what we have covered in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. The first topic is Atma Jnana, the knowledge of Atma, to know that Atma is not the body and the body is not Atma. They are two different substances. One is matter, another one is spirit. Body is matter, Atma is spirit. Body has no knowledge, Atma has knowledge. Body is perishable, Atma is imperishable. Body is born, Atma is unborn. Body goes through changes, Atma doesn't go through changes. So Atma is not the body, Atma is not the senses, Atma is not the mind, Atma is not the air, pranavayu, Atma is not the buddhi, intelligence. Unless this separation is known clearly, one will not be able to start Karma Yoga. One will not even come close to Karma Yoga. After having this knowledge, when one takes up and continues Karma Yoga, the consciousness gets purified. That's the beauty of performing Karma Yoga. When the consciousness gets purified, the mind is clear. There is a clarity in one's thought. Because unless and until we have clarity in our thought, unless and until our consciousness is purified, we cannot spiritually progress. It is the past deeds, which is in the form of karma, that covers us, keeping our mind disturbed, confused and contaminated. Unless and until we overcome this covering, which is blocking our thoughts to think further for higher purpose, we will not be able to move forward. Therefore, as one continues to perform Karma Yoga, that will automatically start purifying the contaminated mind. When the mind is purified, that means there is no more doubts, confusion. The thought is clear. There is clarity in our thoughts. When one's mind is purified, that's when Jnana Yoga is born in that same mind. Krishna mentions this way back in the 2nd chapter, 53rd sloka. Shruti vipratipannate yadastasyati nischala samadho achala buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. Arjuna, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So when the Jnana Yoga is started and continued, that leads one to Dhyana Nishtha. Let's understand the difference between Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Nishtha. Jnana Yoga is in the stage of practice, Prayatana Dasa. One puts efforts to bring the mind and senses to a focal point, that is towards Atma. Repeatedly, continuously, the mind and senses wanders, doesn't stay in one place, and the yogi try to bring it back to the focus. It goes again, bring it back. So 2 things needed to be done here. Number 1, turn the attention away from other things that are external. Number 2, bring that attention towards Atma. The easiest way to pull the attention from external things is to keep the external attractive things away from our vision, our reach, so that the senses has nothing to reach out, rather it will look for some occupation. So bring back the senses towards Atma. So this is what the Jnana Yogi practices. They try to pull the attention away from the external objects, sense objects, and after pulling, they try to bring that attention towards the self, Atma. When turning the attention away from other things that are external, it is called, in the yoga system, it is said vigata-spṛhaḥ, where our eyes, nose, ears, etc. keep running towards sense object, and the jnana yogi continuously pulls those sense away from the sense object. Vigata means turning around, that is turning the senses away from the sense object and engaging them or giving them some other job rather than they being wandering to find the sense object for their enjoyment. Though the senses may be brought under control, but the mind may still be active. Therefore, the next is called ekendriya-samya, where the mind is pulled away from wandering. Control of internal sense, that is mind, is ekendriya-samya. Just controlling is not going to help. One has to engage the mind on some activities, because the idle mind is devil's workshop. Therefore, engaging the mind in Atma is called as vashikara-samya. If someone is hearing these things for the first time, or someone thinks that these are new, they are not. We have discussed these things in the second chapter from verse 55 through 58, when we discuss about sthita-prajna, where Arjuna asked Krishna in the second chapter 54 sloka, sthita-prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava. Krishna, tell me, how does the person who is completely fixed in Atma, what is his symptoms? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? In response to that question, Krishna speaks in 4 slokas, 55, 56, 57, 58. That is, control of external senses, yatamana-samya, engaging the senses, vyatireka-samya, control of internal senses, that is mind, ekendriya-samya, engaging the mind in Atma, vashikara-samya. These are nothing but different stages within Jnana Yoga. By doing this practice, by going through these different stages, one attains Dhyana Nishtha. So, the Jnana Yoga is the beginning level in the process to attain the Dhyana Nishtha. This Jnana Yoga is attained through Chitta Shuddhi. That Chitta Shuddhi is obtained only when the obstacles in the form of previous karmas are removed. The obstacles in the form of karma are removed by following Karma Yoga Anushtana, practicing Karma Yoga. One takes up Karma Yoga seriously when they are triggered by Atma Jnana, the knowledge of Atma, that we are not the body, sense, mind, prana or buddhi. So the foundation of this whole thing is having the knowledge, theoretical knowledge of Atma. Let me repeat this again. Atma Jnana leads to Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga helps one to remove the obstacles in the path of self-realization. When the obstacles are removed, one gets Chitta Shuddhi, that is, one's consciousness gets purified. Then, when the consciousness gets purified, it leads one to Jnana Yoga, and that Jnana Yoga gives Dhyana Nishtha. This Dhyana Nishtha is the ability to able to fix one's thought only on Atma, nothing else. So what's after that? When Dhyana Nishtha continues, it leads one to Atma Darshana, vision of self. All these only leads one to self-realization, vision of self. This is all towards Kaivalya Prapti, that is Atma Prapti, or also known as Brahman realization. Mostly those who are in the path of Brahman realization considered that Brahman to be Atma, and their idea is to be or become Brahman, one with Brahman. That has been the focal point of understanding Atma and getting self-realization, that is getting vision of the self, has been the complete subject matter for the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. There is no talk about Bhagavat Prapti, vision of God, in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Only Atma Sakshatkara, not Bhagavat Sakshatkara. Exception chapter is chapter number 4, where Krishna talks about himself out of the context. So, when one does Karma Yoga, that leads to Jnana Yoga, and that Jnana Yoga gives one Atma Prapti, Atma Sakshatkara. What we are going to discuss further is the same topic, that is Atma Darshana, the vision of Atma, but it doesn't stop just at that point. It goes further. That Atma Darshana leads one to Bhakti. This is where we find a major difference between the earlier chapters of Bhagavad Gita and what we are going to discuss now in rest of this chapter. So, though it may appear that we are repeating few things from the past chapter, but it has a different purpose for the repetition. Chapter 6 focuses and ends with Atma Darshana. And over here, it doesn't end with Atma Darshana, it takes us to paramāṁ Darshana. It would be really nice if we continue and complete this introduction to this upcoming slokas, but due to the time factor, we'll pause here and resume in the next session. Namaste. Hare Krishna.